I mean, you say that emphatically, but do you not believe, given the high-profile nature of football, that it can be used as a vehicle to try,
Absolutely.
and basically, you can't eradicate racism because of football, but because a lot of people watch it, a lot of people interested in it, can it not be used as a vehicle?
Absolutely. The vehicle it should be used for, because black footballers are very high profile, they've got a voice, they've got a platform. Let's talk about the inner city crime and knife crime and what's going on in inner cities. Let's not talk about what happens in Bulgaria, because that does not impact on the black community. The fact that an England player may be racially abused in Bulgaria does not impact on what goes on in Stonebridge Park, in Brixton, in Handsworth. What impacts on that is the knife crime, the lack of education, the lack of facilities, lack of social care in the black communities, and that's what these black players should be talking about, not how terrible it is in Montenegro.
That's correct, John, but the two are not mutually exclusive.
But I hear that all the time. We have to do both, but we're not doing both. Because I don't hear about what's going on in Stonebridge Park. I don't hear about that. All I hear is how terrible it is in Montenegro. So they're not mutually exclusive, but we're focusing on something that isn't affecting the black community. It's affecting a black player. And from a footballing perspective, to bring it back to football, I was at Manchester United game against Liverpool, and I was on the pitch, and people who are now Manchester United fans have to stay behind, so they're now shouting, and and one of the stewards said, there's some racist abuse coming. And I looked into the Manchester United crowd, and I saw two black Manchester United fans in amongst this. How do you think they felt? Who's speaking up about them? You spoke about when you're a young kid, Ian Wright used to go and watch Millwall. Who's speaking up about the fans who are being racially abused? Because they're not important. No one talks about them. Who do we talk about? The footballers. If you want to talk about racism in football, it's much more prevalent for black fans who have to get to the ground 5 minutes early, leave 5 minutes before the end, so don't they get racially abused. And do we highlight that? No, we highlight the fact that a black footballer is getting racial abuse. Now, if we want to change racism in football, let's change it for everybody, not just for superstar footballers.
I understand that. But Darren, do you agree completely with what John says? John basically saying there's an imbalance, but it's still important with high-profile players that if there has been an incident like this, that it is investigated and dealt with correctly.
Yeah, it's got to be dealt with correctly. And as I said, it is individual. He's come out as he obviously expressed his disappointment in the whole process. But I totally agree with what John's saying there. It can't just be the players on the pitch, because I've got good friends that are stewards at football clubs around the country, and there's one ground in particular, which obviously I'm not going to say, and people are saying, well, if you hear someone saying racist remarks, you've got to remove them. Now, they've said to me, why am I going to risk getting beaten up or something happening to me because a couple of 10, morons are shouting at racist abuse? You can't expect me to risk my life to go over there and say, listen, you guys are going to get out, because they're going to get beat up. So again, it starts, it's not just the players on the pitch, it's fans, it's people that work in the community in football.
But the point you made is valid. The point you made about the profiles we actually have. Tell me what's more important, racial abuse in Bulgaria by 50 fans or 97 black kids being stabbed to death? And what's highlighted more? What's on the front pages? What do we as footballers talk about? And if we want to highlight and really make a difference to racism, rather than just for an elite few, of which we are an elite few. So John Barnes wants to be a football manager, and we may say it's racist because I can't get a football job, a job in management, and let's focus on that, rather than thousands of black kids not being given opportunities educationally or vocationally. And if I have a platform and I have a voice, I'm okay. I want to be a manager, but fine. But I've got a nice car, I have a nice house, my life's fine. What's happening to them and who's speaking for them? Now, I know it's not mutually exclusive and we have to do both, but unfortunately, a lot of the elites and the high-profile black people are talking about themselves and what we have to do to help ourselves. And I refuse to do it. I'm not going to do it because there's enough people doing that. So I'm the wrong person to ask about how terrible it is in Montenegro, in Bulgaria, for Jonathan Leko. I want to talk about what's happening for the young black kids, disenfranchised kids in the inner cities who aren't being given an opportunity, and that is what we should use our voice to. People think I have a go at Raheem Sterling. Because when I talk about Raheem, and I say to Raheem Sterling, I don't talk to him because I can't get anywhere near him, but I say, instead of giving 350 kids cup final tickets, semi-final tickets, why don't you take those 350 kids from Stonebridge Park into a press conference and say these kids aren't being given an education, social opportunities, because of the racial bias towards them in the inner cities. That's going to help them. That's going to help them, and that's make a real difference, rather than saying how terrible it is in Montenegro. Yeah, so I know you have to do both. It's not mutually exclusive, but there is enough people doing that. There's not enough people talking about the real problem of implicit, unbiased, because I can tell you, there is invisible banana skins and unspoken racism being thrown at black people in the cities every day as they go around their daily lives. Rather than at a football match where a banana comes on the field and there's racist abuse, who's talking about what's happening in the real problems in the inner cities?
I understand your, I understand you're expressing your disappointment, your disillusionment with the way the focus is, but surely you're not at the point where you wouldn't use the power that football has to try and approach those problems. You just said a great example. If you felt it was more effective, and let's not criticise Raheem Sterling for
not at all.
Sending inner kids, inner city kids, to football, but. If that's the next step.
I understand what you're saying. That's not going to change anything, because what will happen is that John Barnes may get a job as a football manager. Football fans may stop racially abusing players, but that's not going to change the real problem of racial discrimination. A select few will be elevated out of blackness, that's what I call it, to then say, we don't see you as black. John Barnes is a great manager. Beyonce is a great singer. We love them. So there's no discrimination, because, I love black music. I've got black friends. How do we view the average black person? And that's what we have to change. The perception, not the perception of the superstar black person, be a musician, be a footballer, be a doctor or a lawyer. We have to change the perception of the average black person, but no one's even talking about that.
But that's a societal problem.
Of which football is a part of.
Which would be ludicrous to think that football wouldn't be part of. You can't expect society to behave different once they get to a sporting event.
Absolutely, but what I'm saying is that if it happens in society, why shouldn't it happen in football?
Exactly.
So why are we trying to say we're going to stop it in football as long as it continues in society? That's what I'm saying. Once we get rid of it in society, it will cease to exist in all walks of society.
You're talking about the core, John, as in the very, very start of the process.
Of course it is. Listen, it has been a structure for 200 years from the greatest minds in the world. When we talk about idiots or racist, no, they're not. You got Linnaeus, you got Kant, you got Buffon, you got Voltaire. All of the philosophers of the past talk about racial hierarchy for 200 years, and we continue to see it now. And in the last 20 years, we're saying everything you have learned as a people, as a structure in Western society for 200 years is wrong. Why? Because we're all created equal. We have to dismantle it by thinking, where do you then get this idea? So when I talk about Raheem Sterling at Chelsea, for example, those two racist fans who racially abused him, they're not saying to Raheem Sterling that we're superior to you. They're saying to Raheem Sterling, the group of people we belong to is superior to the group of people you belong to. These idiots can't spell their own name. They probably even got jobs. How do they feel superior to Raheem? Because the group of people they belong to are superior to the group of people. Why do they think that? Do you think they're just born that way? This is what they have been conditioned to think, and that's what we have to dismantle, of which football is a part.
You sound somewhere between angry, cynical,
frustrated.
Because
for years, ever since I was a footballer, we're told that racism in football, we're going to get rid of racism in football. And I said, as a 17-year-old player, until we get rid of it in society, and here I am, 55 years old, nearly 40 years later, and we're still having the same problems. And how many millions have been spent? Why don't we try and do something else through education?